I suppose I'm like most people that as I age, I find the scriptures to be more personally challenging. Phrases like, take up your cross and lay down your life, become more real and less hypothetical or figurative of speech. As we age, our bodies kind of let us down. Our challenges seem to be increasing. But however, unlike a lot of other people, as a priest, I find Jesus' regular rebuke of the hierarchy of religious leadership to be something that cuts deeper. It seems like there's more salt in the wounds. Certainly as a Catholic priest, among all the clergy, I feel at times to be wearing this scarlet letter relative to the sexual scandal. And it's not an easy matter to simply say, it's the other people, it wasn't me that commits these sins, because anytime it causes us to kind of reflect on our own humanness, our own hypocrisy at times. But even more than just the sexual scandal, as horrific as it is, on a much more of a daily basis, I bump up against what I believe Jesus is trying to address in the Pharisees, and that is the abuse of power. Abuse of power in as much as it affects the spiritual well-being of the faithful. We as a church have systematically suppressed natural spiritual development. As leaders, we're supposed to encourage people to grow in their faith, to evolve in their development. And we've been suffering under centuries of the old pay, pray, and obey perspective of things, which I believe is probably the same thing that Jesus is trying to address with the Pharisees. It's easier to just tell people what they need to do, assume a position of authority, and leave it at that. But what that does is leaves people arrested in a certain state of development. If supposing a parent were to treat their teenager as though they're still in the 8th grade and never allow them to develop beyond that, we know that's not going to end well. And that's perhaps the state of the church today, where people have evolved, they've developed their conscience, and the old pay, pray, and obey approach to things doesn't seem to sit well. So on a regular basis, we have to encounter people that are saying, what do you mean that Adam and Eve didn't really exist, that it's just a story? What are you telling me that the great flood might not actually have happened? What are you telling me that I don't have to have my loved ones anointed, otherwise they won't go to heaven? All things that they were told by the church, either systematically or by individual clergy. And so that is something that we bump up against now as we're trying to address why the pews are empty and why people have left. And it's going to be a challenge. And we can do that on a one-to-one basis, because really we're all in different spiritual paths, different stages of development. But another reason this gospel passage challenges me as a leader is because I wonder about leadership as a whole. Where does abuse of a power come in? When I worked at GE, I had a position where I had responsibility without much power. I was supposed to work with a team of people and get them to do their jobs in a particular way that would serve the larger whole. And it was a challenge because you had to cajole, you had to entice, you had to invite, you had to schmooze people to get them to do something because you had no power to force them to do it. It was a frustrating, thankless job. What an amazing preparation it is for my job as a pastor of 3 parishes, because I'm still seemingly without power, because I still need to cajole, I need to entice, I need to invite people, and they're all over the lot. It's like herding rabbits. And people would say, I've done too little, too late, I haven't done anything. Maybe that's why I get good reviews at times. And there's other people who would say, you're going to do something, as soon as we start to make change, then I'm going to be labeled as a dictator. The longer I go in this pseudo role of leadership, I can kind of appreciate why some clergy of the past had slipped into the benevolent dictator approach to things. Because if you try to get consensus, it can be very challenging. And yet, that's what Jesus calls us to do. That's what Pope Francis calls us to do. He's the one that's trying to encourage people to sit down and have conversations, to sort out things at a local level and not always do a top-down approach to control. So here we are in a situation where the pasture seems to be pretty thin. The sheep are dwindling. The fence is broken down and the gate is off the hinges. What is left is the sheep. Some are in the pasture, some are out of the pasture. And the thing is, I want to encourage and really thank the people that have stuck around despite the challenges. Because I believe that if you are hearing the authentic voice, then you need to be able to share that. Evangelism occurs best by word of mouth. As Jesus puts out in this parable, the sheep already understood and knew the voice of authenticity. They didn't follow the false shepherds. They understood hypocrisy at a very personal level. And so the people of God, whether or not they're in the church or out of the church, still have the ability to hear the Holy Spirit, which is called to guide us to all truth. And so we have a responsibility to share that truth when we hear it, and to be open to be challenged ourselves, not only as an institution, but as individuals. So our future is out there someplace. It is with the Holy Spirit, and it is with the people of God. You're not just simply passive sheep. You're given a conscience and a mind. Please use it accordingly to help us move forward.